Next on Current News, hundreds of trucks carrying Americans are making their way out of Syria. Kurds left behind saying their goodbyes by throwing rotten food. A settlement struck at midnight. 4 pharmaceutical companies agreed to an 11th-hour deal, avoiding the first major opioid trial. And thieves record themselves dumping statues into Rome's Tiber River at dawn. The controversial icons mean a lot to indigenous people. Plus, anti-Semitism in America is on track to set a new record. Jewish leaders are calling that horrifying. The news starts right now. Angry Syrian Kurds threw rotten vegetables at U.S. forces pulling out of the country. Good evening, I'm Emily Druby. The U.S. exit from Syria is sparking a lot of opposition from America's former allies. The pullout is leaving behind a dangerous situation for the Kurds. Turkey invaded Syria to eradicate them. Nick Payton-Walsh reports from northern Syria that the withdrawal is hard for all involved.
They really didn't want to go, but had to all the same. Hundreds of US vehicles rallying here near Hasaka Sunday before the drive north. Orders from thousands of miles away, given without warning, made this messier than elite troops would have it. This campaign cut so abruptly short, so perilously, and this exit, frankly, so hasty, a messy job for any military to have to undertake. And this is where the mess of US policy towards Syria's Kurds will have to be cleaned up. 1,000 men left out on their own here once President Trump dropped the Syrian Kurds, mostly headed for the exit. Their mammoth convoy woke us in the city of Qamishli. A mixed reception. Syrian Kurds aware these troops didn't choose to leave, but having no other Americans to vent their rage at. The movements and aerial support carried on till dawn. The convoy rolled through the desert, out into neighbouring Iraqi Kurdistan, not on their way home, but to reposition, where they would have to continue to fight against ISIS in Syria as it regroups, but from a much worse position. This the enduring fault of this policy move. ISIS isn't finished, and nobody's really coming home. In this Qamishli hospital, Sarah hasn't gone home yet either. She doesn't know yet that her brother Mohammed died in the same mortar attack, allegedly by pro-Turkish forces, that also took her leg. She can't look at her missing limb without screaming, and tells those around her to stop standing up. Her mother Nariman blames herself for not leaving town earlier. My heart is in pain, she says. They took the light from my eyes. The candle in my life is out forever. What was our guilt? What did we do for this? There is global anguish over the fate of Syrian Kurds, and Sarah's plight has been well publicised. But they and she are still here. Nobody has come to help yet. She has toys aplenty, but a future, the shape of which she cannot feel yet. Nick Payton-Walsh, Qamishli, northern Syria.
The ceasefire in Syria is expiring tomorrow night, and Turkey is warning the Kurds. The United States brokered a deal with Ankara to pause the warfare for 120 hours so that Kurdish militias could leave the border region. Turkey's foreign minister is saying the Kurds are complying with the agreement and withdrawing from areas Turkey now controls, but he's also warning that military operations will resume if the Kurdish fighters are not completely gone when the temporary truce ends Tuesday night. Turkey's President Recep Erdogan not only wants control of Syrian land along his country's border, he wants nuclear bombs. He's making no secret of his ambition to get the weapons. Shortly before invading Syria, Erdogan told members of his party that he won't accept a ban. Turkey is a NATO ally and signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Still, the Turkish president is insisting that if other countries have nuclear missiles, Turkey should too. Now on to tonight's other big story, the opioid epidemic gripping the United States. An 11th hour deal by 4 pharmaceutical companies is putting the brakes on a major opioid trial. Nadia Romero reports the drug firms are going to pay out millions.
We're setting a benchmark for the rest of the country.
This team of attorneys in Cleveland claiming a small victory in the fight against the opioid epidemic. These 3 pharmaceutical companies combined agreed to settle with 2 counties in Ohio to the tune of $215 million immediately. Another company will pay $20 million.
It involves treatment. It involves caring for the kids that have been left behind. It involves criminal justice issues. It involves all kinds of things that we've had to deal with.
This was supposed to be the first federal multi-district litigation involving the opioid crisis, but a deal was struck in the early hours of Monday, dismissing the trial, awarding Summit and Cuyahoga counties in Ohio with big money. But one major potential plaintiff, Walgreens, was left off the case.
We realized the pharmacies should stand alone, and that's why Walgreens is now being severed out.
Walgreens releasing this statement that reads in part, "We never sold opioid medications to pain clinics, internet pharmacies, or the pill mills that fueled the national opioid crisis." But the giant pharmacy may have to defend itself again in a different trial. Monday's settlement is the first case of more than 2,700 plaintiff communities across the U.S.
We need resources from the parties that caused this problem. They need to make it right.
In Washington, Nadia Romero, Currents News.
The human toll from the opioid crisis is severe. Deaths from overdoses are up among both men and women and in all races. According to the Health and Human Services Department, 130 people die every day from opioid overdoses. In 2016, the last time the organization took note, there were 47,600 deaths. President Trump is saying more today about holding the next G7 summit at his resort in Florida. It's not going to happen. Over the weekend, he blamed the media and Democrats, tweeting that, based on both media and Democrat-crazed and irrational hostility, we will no longer consider Trump National Doral Miami as the host site for the G7 in 2020. This afternoon, during a cabinet meeting at the White House, he defended the decision to select his resort.
Doral was a very simple situation. I own a property in Florida. I was going to do it at no cost or give it free if I got a ruling, because there's a question as to whether or not you're allowed to give it, because it's like a contribution to a country. I'd have to get a ruling. But I would have given it for nothing. It's a lot of money I would have given away, like I give away my salary. I give away my salary. It's, I guess, close to $450,000. I give it away. Nobody ever said he gives away his salary. Now it comes up because of this. But I give away my presidential salary. They say that no other president has done it. I'm surprised, to be honest with you. They actually say that George Washington may have been the only other president.
There had been mounting criticism in recent days over the choice of Doral to host the G7. The Democratic-led House had been set to vote on a resolution to condemn use of the resort for the summit. The president's acting chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, is arguing that he never said that military aid was held up to force Ukraine to investigate corruption and Democrats. He's faced criticism for his remarks to White House reporters.
That's what people said that I said. Here's what I said. I'll say it again, and hopefully people will listen this time. There were 2 reasons that we held up the aid. We've talked about this at some length. The first one was the rampant corruption in Ukraine. Ukraine, by the way, Chris, is so bad in Ukraine that in 2014 Congress passed a law requiring us to make sure that corruption was moving in the right direction. So corruption's a big deal. Everybody knows it. The president was also concerned about whether or not other nations, specifically European nations, were helping with foreign aid to the Ukraine as well. We've talked about that for quite a while now.
Mulvaney never discussed his resignation with the president. Now for news that's still developing, it involves the Pope's historic summit on the Amazon. Statues stolen from a Rome church were thrown into the Tiber River, and the crimes were caught on camera. The controversial icons were treasured by indigenous people from the rainforest. Melissa Butts reports the latest from the Eternal City.
These wood carvings kept at Santa Maria in Trespatina Church right outside the Vatican are no longer there. They were taken early Monday morning by a couple of men who videoed themselves. They first videoed themselves entering the dimly lit church. The figures can be seen in their original places before one of the men is seen entering in and removing them. The statues are then carried by Castel Sant'Angelo, seen in a man's arms, before they are lined up and thrown into the river 4 minutes later. Some have called this wooden figure pagan, but indigenous have called this figure Our Lady of the Amazon or have described her as a symbol of Mother Earth. A Brazilian man who witnessed the event also agreed with this description.
Estávamos reunidos, né?
We were inside the church and 3 people came in dressed in work clothes. They had cameras in front. They took the statues that symbolize Mother Earth of the Amazon. The Vatican gave a response at the press briefing for journalists on the Amazon Synod. We've already said here that these statues were representing life, fertility, Mother Earth. So it's a gesture that I think, in my opinion, goes against the spirit of dialogue that should always animate everyone. I don't know what else to say except that it was a theft and that it's something that needs no further comment. People want to sometimes bring attention to something that shouldn't be highlighted so much. It was a statue. There was also a canoe, some parrots, a bottle of water that represented together the life of the Amazon. While the Vatican is downplaying the event, nobody inside Santa Maria in Trespontino would speak on camera either. After the act, the displays had to be reorganized, but pilgrims are continuing to pour in right outside the Vatican. The event is still under investigation, but the head of the Indigenous exhibition confirmed with me that it is all in the hands of police right now, as they're seeking to find those who are guilty. In Rome, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
Against the backdrop of the Amazon Synod tonight, there are new allegations of financial wrongdoing at the Vatican. Donations to the Holy Father's Peter's Pence charitable fund for the poor were allegedly used to buy a $200 million apartment building in London. The charges appearing in a widely read Italian magazine are reportedly based on leaked documents. 5 Vatican employees were recently suspended amid an unfolding investigation involving the Vatican's Secretariat of State. Now here at home, an update tonight on the Italian-American icon Mother Cabrini. Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio, Governor Andrew Cuomo, and top Italian-American leaders met for the first time to begin sketching out plans to build a new statue in the saint's honor. Among the options discussed were erecting a monument at the 9/11 Memorial or outside the Cabrini Shrine in Washington Heights. The governor is promising state funding. Bishop DiMarzio is leading the drive to honor Mother Cabrini after City Hall initially refused a statue for the patroness of immigrants. Bishop DiMarzio is also celebrating the faith of Polish Catholics in the Brooklyn Diocese. The annual Polish Heritage Mass this weekend looked to the future and the importance of young people in the church. Celebrating the Mass with Bishop DiMarzio was Bishop Henryk Tomasek, who leads the pastoral care of the youth for the Bishops' Conference in Poland. He told the young kids in attendance to keep their traditions going for generations to come. There's a lot more news headed your way. Jewish leaders are calling a new report horrifying. Attacks against the faithful are on the rise. We'll break down the numbers. The moment a high school coach responds to danger with a hug. And we'll hear from angels talking about why they're making a sacrifice to keep students in Catholic schools. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Anti-Semitic attacks in the United States are nearing record levels. The Anti-Defamation League released new numbers today, calling them horrifying. There have been 780 anti-Semitic attacks in the first 6 months of 2019. That's almost identical to the acts of hate reported for the same period last year, when there were 785 attacks. Several of those incidents happened right here in New York City. Currents News' Michelle Powers reports on the deadly threats that are homegrown.
An Orthodox Jew beaten in the streets of Brooklyn, another sucker punched in New York. In Los Angeles, a driver screaming disturbing hate speech. And exactly 6 months apart, shooters attacking American synagogues during services with the intent to kill. Pittsburgh last October, 11 lives lost in the worst act of anti-Semitic violence in American history. Poway in April, killing one worshiper. The direct threat against American Jews as victims of vandalism, assault, and even murder is at alarming levels.
We're talking some of the highest numbers of incidents that we've ever seen. It's really kind of unfolded itself in a very ugly way.
For a third year in a row, the Anti-Defamation League says anti-Semitic incidents in America rose to near historic highs. Each of the 1,879 dots, a physical manifestation of hate in 2018.
The threat environment today is one that we haven't seen in this country in recent memory.
George Salim oversees the ADL Center for Extremism. He says the threat is homegrown and overwhelmingly far-right and white.
There's this concept within white supremacist circles of accelerationism. That means that individuals feel like the white race is in danger and they need to act now.
The evidence of the growing threat is plain to see. Synagogues now pockmarked with bullet holes.
I was centimeters away from death. I still feel the power of the bullets flying.
Rabbi Yisrael Goldstein came to Poway, California in the 1980s with a dream to build a safe oasis for the Jewish community. The 19-year-old white male suspect wrote of killing Jews in an open letter before the attack. I feel no remorse. I only wish I killed more. He said his inspiration came from the slaughter of 50 Muslims at 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, and the massacre of 11 Jews at a synagogue in Pittsburgh, both of which police say were perpetrated by white supremacists.
Current News' Michelle Powers filing that report. The Anti-Defamation League's findings come almost exactly 1 year after that deadly shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue. Federal prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. At the same time, another new report shows the worldwide population of Catholics is growing. The new information is being released by the Vatican in connection with Mission Sunday, a day the church comes together to collect money for the poor and focus on evangelization. According to the church's book of statistics, 14 million Catholics have joined the church. The biggest growth is being cited in Africa and the Americas. Worldwide, there are now more than 1.3 billion Catholics. Celebrating World Mission Day at the Vatican, Pope Francis addressed thousands of pilgrims in St. Peter's Square, the Holy Father telling his listeners that every Catholic has a duty to proclaim God's word.
I credenti sono chiamati a portare ovunque la buona notizia che Gesù, la misericordia vince il peccato, la speranza vince la paura, la fraternità vince l'ostilità.
Hundreds of Peruvians living in Rome also carry the image of the Lord of Miracles through St. Peter's Square. It's a major way they evangelize back at home. The Pope asked them to keep their traditions strong even though they are far from Peru. Making evangelization stronger at home is a prime mission of Catholic schools. In the Brooklyn Diocese, angels are dedicated to the job. They're part of Futures in Education. Through the organization Donors, the angels support young kids so they can attend Catholic schools. Tomorrow night is Futures annual scholarship dinner. I previously met one duo who are just thankful for each other.
While walking the halls of Brooklyn's St. Bernadette Catholic Academy, Mary J. McCartney reminisces about her time in Catholic school.
So the memories are great. The foundation is great.
McCartney attended Catholic grammar school, high school, and college.
I remember praying every day at the beginning of class.
Now she's an angel donor with Futures in Education for Brooklyn and Queens, meaning she donates every year to help a student attend Catholic school.
Well, Catholic education is such a good investment. Students from Catholic school do very well in high school, in college, and in life. And that's an investment that's worth making.
McCartney has sponsored 2 students during the almost 7 years that she has been involved in the program. Currently, she's sponsoring Joseph at St. Bernadette.
I just like coming to school up here because of all my nice friends.
Joseph loves school. He runs to school every day. He loves his classmates, his teachers. He doesn't like the idea of missing a day of school.
Joseph's mother grateful for the help McCartney and Futures in Education provides.
Neither one of my kids would be able to come here if we didn't utilize Futures in Education. Their angels make my life a lot easier.
It's a wonderful feeling to help a student get a Catholic education.
In addition to providing over $1,500 a year in tuition, Angel donors interact with their Angel students through notes, cards, drawings, and annual progress reports. They are also able to meet their student or students during an annual Angel reception. Just at St. Bernadette, there's 16 students receiving scholarships from Futures in Education. That's more than $22,000. 11 of those students are Angel students and have sponsors similar to McCartney. Across the Diocese of Brooklyn, there's 686 Angel students in 80 elementary schools.
To support the great work being done by Futures in Education, go to their website, futuresineducation.org, and click on Donate in the upper right-hand corner. There's always more students to help. There's remarkable new video out tonight showing an Oregon high school football coach disarming a student with a gun using kindness. Keenan Lowe encountered the armed teen outside a classroom. After grabbing his gun, the coach reached in for a hug, consoling the crisis-stricken 19-year-old. Coach Lowe believes it was divine intervention.
I feel like I was put in that room in that very moment for a reason. To protect those kids.
By the grace of God, nobody was hurt in this one, so I'm very thankful for that.
That student, Angel Granados Diaz, has pled guilty to unlawful possession of a firearm. He's been sentenced to 3 years probation as well as mental health and substance abuse treatment. Still to come on Currents News, New Yorkers honoring their beloved saint, Mother Cabrini. Video highlights that you won't want to miss are ahead. And please check out one of the latest features in the tablet, the Our Diocesan Family page. That's where you can send in photos of your family receiving certain sacraments such as baptism, First Communion, confirmation, and marriage. For more information and to submit your pictures, go to thetablet.org/OurDiocesanFamily. We'll be right back. As we reported earlier, the plans to honor Mother Cabrini are moving full steam ahead. Bishop DiMarzio met with Governor Cuomo this weekend to make sure a statue dedicated to New York's beloved saint is built. Finally tonight, there's a look at how far the diocese has come.
She constantly moved. She's a perfect symbol for the new evangelization, for going out, doing things, bringing our faith, bringing Christ and his love out into the public arena and to people who need it.
She was a woman of courage and bucked a lot of systems to do what she had to do.
I am delighted to see Mother Cabrini being honored today.
It's such an inspiration to see all those people fighting for her. That is Currents News. I'm Emily Druby. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.